Now the question is, who are we? Not who are we portraying ourselves to be, but who are we on the inside? Not what fear or pride tell us to be, but who are we in our pure and true form? There are many faces we wear as we enter different contexts and situations. The corporate world is filled with painted smiles and false gratitude for the sake of networking and getting ahead. The sports world is filled with heightened aggression for the sake of competition and performance and striking fear into the opponent. Our dinner tables don't always get to see our honest opinion of the food for the sake of not upsetting the cook. And if our family gatherings were a closet, it will be filled with veils of perfection to avoid the slander towards our current life condition. We have to show up so many times as something we don't believe that I fear that one day we will forget the truth of who we really are. In Matthew 26, we see a famous example of how the fear of man can dictate how we show up in the world despite what we believe in our own hearts. In Matthew 26, starting at verse 7, it says, "Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, 'You also were with Jesus the Galilean.' But he denied it before them all, saying, 'I do not know what you mean.' And when he went out to the entrance, another servant girl saw him and said to the bystanders, 'This man was with Jesus of Nazareth.' And again he denied it with an oath, saying, 'I do not know the man.' After a little while, the bystander came up and said to Peter, 'Certainly, you too are one of them, for your accent betrays you.' Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, 'I do not know the man.' And immediately the rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, 'Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.' And he went out and wept bitterly." It's the year 33 AD. It's moments immediately after Jesus was betrayed by Judas Iscariot. And in that same night, Jesus revealed that when he was betrayed, that the disciples would then be on the run. In verse 31 it says, "Then Jesus said to them, 'Tonight all of you will fall away because of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.' Peter told him, 'Even if everyone falls away because of you, I will never fall away. Truly I tell you,' Jesus said to him, 'tonight, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Even if I have to die with you,' Peter told him, 'I will never deny you.' And all the disciples said the same." You see, it's easy to be bold in your beliefs when there's no opposition. It's easy to stand when there's no one standing against you. It's easy to say how much you love Jesus until you're in a room with people who hate him. And Peter claimed that even if he had to die, he would never deny him. He would follow him until death. And as we see from the main text, Peter wasn't even faced with death in this moment. They only asked if he knew Jesus. See, it was the fear of death by association that caused him to deny Christ. And I believe many of us have dealt with the same dilemma one way or another. We let the fear of persecution affect us, when in all honesty, we don't know what the outcome will be. Like having a fear of your parents' response, so you lie on your grades, or having a fear of getting fired, so you don't mention when you're unsure how to do a task, or having a fear of persecution and death and therefore denying your association with Jesus. Now, if one of the disciples who walk with Jesus is not immune to falling when faced with fear, how much more do we need to be on guard and stand for our faith and our identity? I believe that some of us will come to a point where fear will creep in and completely alter how we interact with the world around us. And I believe that some of us are already at that point and don't even know it. I fear that one day our heart's intentions and our heart's desires won't be aligned anymore, and we won't walk in our true identity. You see, the word heart in Hebrew means lave, which sounds like love. And in the Greek, it's cardia, like cardiovascular. And the combined definition means the innermost parts of a man: moral character, emotions, desires, passions, the seat of our sensibilities, which is a person's capacity to feel and respond to emotions, aesthetic stimuli, or moral and social issues. You see, your heart is the true driver of your actions and reactions to the world around you. The word intention or intent is yeser, meaning form, framing, framework, but it also means discretion, mischievous, or having an evil plot. Therefore, there's typically not good intentions when this word is used. You see, our heart's intentions deal with our outward character. It deals with how we want people to see us in a given moment. We begin to grieve when people don't perceive us as we want them to see us. Having intentions means that we're trying to accomplish something in a given moment. And intentions aren't always pure. It could be your support, your generosity, your service, or even sometimes our worship can be impure if you're doing it only to be seen. You see, our heart's intentions determine our actions so that others view us in a certain light. When we want to be liked among our friend circle, it will cause us to like people that they like and hate people that they hate. Even though our discernment can see the truth under the surface, whether that's good or bad, it may cause us to treat people with disdain. It could be that person eating lunch alone, in need of a friend, in need of a proper example of what a Christian is supposed to be. But because of how we want to be viewed in a circle, we ignore the person and move along as if nothing happened. And instead of introducing ourselves to the next soul that could be saved, we cling to our heart's intentions of wanting to be connected to the group. Now for our heart's desires. The word desire is tsuka, meaning a longing or a craving. You see, our heart's desires deal with who we really are on the inside. It's what our heart and soul cry out for. It's what causes you to feel stuck at your job even though you're fighting to keep it. Because your heart's intention is to be successful and provide and make your parents proud for the things that you accomplish, but your heart's desires surpass what your job can actually offer. It's what causes you to grieve the homeless because your heart's desire is for helping God's people and for everyone to be treated equally. It's what causes you to want to empower the youth because your heart's desire is for the future of the faith and empowering the next generations. You can recognize your heart's desire because you can feel God calling you to something different. If He is pulling you towards something, you will never be comfortable and you will never find peace. See, if you put a dog in a cage that's too small for him, you will notice his posture. He would try to move and adjust to find some kind of relief, but then will always come up short. You can watch a fish in the cage that's in a container in a tank that's too small. It will eventually realize the restrictions of the glass and it will barely move and eventually just stop. Because its true heart's desire is to just take off and swim. It's not used to being confined to a small tank, but it's used to being in an ocean. So if we know God is calling us to something bigger, let us not be a people that hear the voice of God and don't move. Because not answering to that, not moving is what kills the soul. So how do we realign our heart's desires and intentions? We can look at a quote by Brene Brown which says, "Let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are." Meaning, stop running from yourself before it's too late. So let's look back at the text. In verse 69 it says, "Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, 'You also were with Jesus the Galilean.' But he denied it before them all, saying, 'I do not know what you mean.'" So when I first read this, I assumed it was a one-on-one conversation with Peter and the servant girl. But it says that the servant girl spoke to Peter, and then Peter responded to them all. Then we remember that he's inside of a courtyard. So when the servant girl spoke of such a bold and sensitive accusation, it drew the attention of everyone else in the crowd. But the servant girl saw something that was evident on Peter, and it was clear that the crowd saw the same thing as well, which is why Peter had to deny it before them all. So after the first time, Peter tries to run and leave the courtyard because clearly these people don't know what they're talking about. But what happens is he runs into another servant girl and he gets called out again. Notice how in both moments no one said anything until the servants did. And I believe it's showing us that it was the servants who were able to see Jesus on Peter. Because there's always something about servants that have the clearest and best understanding, a best view of who Jesus is. You see, it's something about serving that gets you to know Jesus more. Why? Because not only are you serving his body, but you step into his body and become the hands and feet of Jesus in order to serve his people properly. And what I mean is, as you start to serve his people, you step into his identity. Because what needs to happen is that people not see you, but see Jesus through you. So naturally, as you help his people, you become more like him and step into his identity. You see, the servant girls would have had some of this identity on them and in them, which is why they were able to see Jesus on other people as well. But outside of accents and pronunciations, there are other things that we pick up from people the longer that we're around them. It's how they act, how they respond, how they react to the challenges in their life, how they treat women and children, how they speak about themselves, how they speak about the things that they like and dislike, how they speak about what they believe, how they joke, how they argue, how they describe their emotions and behaviors. We begin to emulate and embody people the more that we spend time together. So it was evident that Peter had spent time with Jesus by the way that he talked and the way he walked. So can people say the same thing about us? And in verse 75 it says, "And immediately the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, 'Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.' and he went out and wept bitterly. So what do we see? This is an example of his heart's desires being revealed. It's Peter realizing how misaligned his heart's desires and heart's intentions were. You see, the more misaligned we are, the deeper our hearts cry out. The more uncomfortable we are and the less we feel free. So what am I trying to say with this? You can't hide who you are forever. You will eventually have to walk in your identity, or else everyone around you will begin to see it and begin to call you out and begin to leave you even because they see you as a fraud. When you start a new relationship, any relationship, whether it be business or it be intimate, you can have people believe you from the beginning, but eventually your true colors will start to show. Eventually we will see the truth of your personality, your integrity, your trustworthiness, your gentleness, your faith, your hope, your work ethic, your discipline, your endurance. Eventually everything will show. You can't hide who you are forever. And just like with Peter, his walk and his talk revealed that he had been with Jesus. The way you move can reveal your identity and your calling. And sometimes it takes others calling it out of you for you to see it within yourself. When children are born, they begin to react to the life around them, showing their personality, their intelligence, their interests. We can begin to see where they could fit in the world. We can begin to see their gifts. And as we get older, the same rules apply. And the context doesn't matter either. Whether Peter was in the courtyard or out of the courtyard, people were still able to see Jesus on him. So hopefully people can say the same about us. Another quote, this time by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, the only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. Meaning there's a decision that we have to make, and it's not just automatic. There will be purposeful steps that we have to take. And if we want change, we will have to change. We will have to see where we are and realize that the habits that we make on a daily basis will confirm and reinforce your current position in life. And therefore you have to make new habits and maintain it in order to show God that you want something new in life or that you're ready for it. There will be divine intervention along the way, but it's predicated on us moving. And then God will start to move life around us to work in our favor towards the thing that we are showing him that we want. It's like a car that's fully functional and able to move, but it waits on you to turn the key. And you can have the desire to drive the car and experience the road all you want, but until you get in the car and turn the key in the ignition, you won't be able to experience the joy of driving on the road. And in the same way, the things that we desire already exist in the world. It's just waiting on us. Remember that Adam was placed in the garden, not in the desert. He didn't have to create grass or water or sunlight. The provisions were already there. So now, how do we begin to walk in our true identity? In order to do so, we must embrace the wilderness. In Matthew 4:1 it says, then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the tempter came and said to him, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. But he answered, it is written, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. We have to mention the wilderness because this is where you are stripped of your false identity. The wilderness is where we strengthen ourselves with God's word and understanding of who he is. It's where we fully listen to God. Cutting out the outside noise allows us to hear God and God alone. This will eliminate the voices of the world that influence us to embrace the wrong identity. Now, though Jesus was fully God and fully himself, by the end of the 40 days, he had spent time with only God. So when the enemy tried to come in and challenge his identity, it was impossible to convince him otherwise. We need to be so confident in God's word and what he says about us that our identity doesn't shift by the perspective of others. The wilderness is where we let go of our false sense of security. You see, we're so used to the provisions of the world, but now when you enter this season, you really have to step out on faith and trust that God will provide. We have to let him show us and surprise us with new ways of taking care of us. The Israelites were provided for by manna falling down from heaven, so they had to gather food in like a totally new way. You may be used to provisions from work, provisions from your parents, but none of that truly comes directly from God. He wants us to embrace the wilderness so that we know that he will truly take care of us and provide for us whenever we're in need. So now what this does is protect us from showing up with a false identity for the sake of holding positions. We play the part for maintaining security and provisions, but when we put all of our trust in God, then we can show up as our true self because our security is now in Him. And He knows us. And now we only have to seek the approval of God and not a man who thinks that our security is held in his hands. But the longer you take to embrace the wilderness, the longer it would take for you to find out who you really are. You will only be delaying your destiny. Now, once you've heard from God and start this journey, it's important to remember what God said before it's too late. Now, back in Matthew 26, verse 73, it says, "After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, 'Certainly you too are one of them, for your accent betrayed you.' Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, 'I do not know the man.' And immediately the rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, 'Before the rooster crows, you would deny me 3 times.' And he went out and wept bitterly." Now, everything has basically led to this point because true identity does not come from us relying on ourselves to figure it out. In the scripture, Peter was relying on his own strength and his own memory. But if his own strength was reliable, he would have remembered what happened moments before. He would have remembered how he spoke with such boldness in response to Jesus as he was saying, "I would not deny you. Even if I have to die, I would not deny you." However, in his own strength, it was the fear of death that caused him to deny Jesus not once but 3 times. And he probably would have done it again had he not heard the sound of the rooster to remind him of the words of Jesus. That is why we need to keep God in our minds, keep God in our remembrance, keep His promises in our heart. Because if we hold on to what He said, then we will rely on His word and not our own wisdom when we view our situations. Jesus said that He would destroy this temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Yet no one understood what He meant. And therefore they did not hold on to His word by the time His crucifixion and death came. They stood there and mourned, which is not wrong to do when we think about the fatal suffering that was inflicted upon Jesus. But had they held on to His word, there should have been a layer of joy, a layer of hope, a layer of excitement as they remembered the rebuilding of the temple, that is, the resurrected King, to the return of His power and His glory. So the best way to find out who you are is to find out who He is and find out His truth about you, and let that be the truth you walk in each and every day.